Hey folks, welcome to Bullet Points, and we are here at Central Iowa Impact. My friend Colby is the range safety officer and runs this place a couple days a week. He's the man behind the counter, the man to see about your gun needs.
Alright, so what we got here is a clone of the Winchester 1873. It was one of the very first centerfire cartridges rifles that was out there. It is one of the faster repeaters on the market today after a bit of modification. These two right here are reproductions of the Colt 1873 revolver. They are both a cattleman length and barrel. They both shoot 45 long Colt, and as you'll see, I do run both guns quite fast. They aren't the fastest out there, obviously. I am just a beginner, but the biggest thing is they do run off the same cartridge, which was a big advantage back in the old Western days. Merely, you didn't have to buy multiple types of ammunition. You could buy one round, run it in both guns, and you were set. In general, getting these is actually quite easy. They are in current production. Most of them are made over in Italy, whether they're from the Pieta factory or out of Uberti, imported either by Taylor & Co. or Cimarron Manufacturing here in the United States. There are quite a lot of variety of these particular models. You can get them, the revolvers themselves, clear out to a 7.5, even out to a 9-inch barrel length. The rifles themselves, you can get them at this current one is 18.5, but they do go clear out to 24-inch. Variety of calibers. You can get 357, 4440. These, like I said, are in long Colt. There are just quite a few options to choose from. Most are readily available on the current market. If you're interested in something like this, feel free to stop in and I can help you out. Well, the main reason that I did eventually fall in love with these type of guns was my wife's grandfather. When I met her and we started dating, this was his thing. I wasn't really well versed in it at the time. I was more into the semi-automatic stuff, just like every young kid getting into guns for the first time. However, talking with him, meeting with him, it went from his passion to my passion. I've taken it over. I do the best I can to keep into it. You know, I reload my own ammo for these guns for my competition's sake, just to make sure that they're running at top mark. But, you know, they just became something to me that is just unavoidable for me to ever give up. It became a second nature to me, if you will, just merely because of the association with that one man.
Hey guys, welcome back to Bullet Points. Today is part 3 of our 5-part repeating firearms history, review, fun stories. This is the Winchester 1873. So we've already talked about the 1860 and the 1866. If you haven't seen those videos, go back and check them out. But this is the 73. This is the gun that won the West. With, up to this point, you know, there's probably about 700,000 lever action rifles already in production, or already out in the world before this guy came into play. When this guy came into play, Winchester wanted to find a cartridge and find a platform that was going to be compatible with both your revolver and your rifle, so that if you're going out west, instead of carrying multiple calibers of rounds, you've got one round, goes in both, and is kind of a do-all system. So they came up with the 1873. One of the things that they did specifically to make this a more user-friendly gun was add side plates. You can see that the receiver on this one is not brass, it's actually steel. They made them both in iron and steel, so they've really strengthened the receiver portion. The hammer is still exterior, just like on the 60 and 66. It's got the side loading gate that was introduced in the 66. And the cool thing about them, these rifles cost $18 when they came off the market, or came off the shelf. So anybody could afford them. It wasn't the Henry that was so expensive, the $40 Henry. And this is years after the Henry's been introduced. So anybody could own this rifle. This rifle was mass produced. Really the big differences that they made was they added a side plate here that was removable. So if you have a malfunction or an issue or you need to clean the inside of it, one screw was removed and you could clean out the inside of your action. The other big thing, besides the fact that this was the first production center fire rifle, They came out in the 4440 chambering, and over the years they chambered it in multiple different rounds, but all of them were compatible with a revolver firearm. So you had a centerfire cartridge, which was typically more accurate, a little bit more powerful, and you still had all the rounds that you wanted. They made this in 3 different variants originally. They made it in the carbine, which is what this is. So it's a shorter barrel, easy to wield around. It's a lot lighter than the 1866 and the 1860. The other thing that they did on this particular model, with that shortened barrel length, it made it easy to go on horseback with. They also made this in the Sporter rifle, which was a 24-inch barrel, so the same length as the Henry, the same length as the 66, and they put a dust cover so that it could cover up that receiver. So you weren't getting all the dirt and crap in there. Everything that we've done, all the improvements that we've seen from the 1860, 66, and now to the 73 have been to make them a more reliable gun, to keep more crap out of them. That dust cover, when you cycle the rifle, automatically comes back. Now you manually have to put it back in place, but if you were carrying this and you're on horseback or in a pack or something else, it kept out most of the dirt and gravel until you needed to actually use the rifle. The 4440 cartridge that this was originally chambered in was significantly more powerful than the 44 Henry, and it wasn't a rimfire cartridge. Why is that a big improvement? The problem with the extraction on the 44 Henry was they had to use a softer casing. It had your firing pin struck at the side of that casing, and so your extractor claw couldn't always get over top of that round and clear it from the chamber. This, going to that centerfire cartridge, significantly reduced the number of malfunctions that people were having when they were firing rapidly. The other huge improvement on the 73 was, because this was all steel, and because the linkage, the metallurgy that's inside that same linkage that was in the 60, 66, and now the 73, they made it with tougher material. So now all of a sudden it could handle these higher pressures. Still a pistol cartridge, but now you're shooting deer or bear or medium to large game with this rifle at up to 100 yards. That was a huge improvement for accuracy and dependability, which made it so popular with cowboys, guys going west, guys going to Alaska, even before Alaska or Canada was typically accessible to anybody but the most pioneering of people. These guns saw tons and tons of use. In their heyday, this was the longest production rifle that Winchester ever made, almost 44 years. These things expanded across the entire country. The initial run, as long as for those 44 years, there was 720,000 of these produced. And when you look at the population of the United States at the time, that meant that almost 1 in 4 people owned a lever action 1873 Winchester. It was a prolific firearm. This thing was everywhere because people could afford it. Now, they weren't incredibly accurate. Could you hit a deer out at 100 yards? Absolutely. Could you group 5 shots at 100 yards? Roughly in the size of a 10-inch plate. But every once in a while, when they were doing their test firing, Winchester would come out with a particularly accurate rifle. One of those rifles test fired would be very, very accurate. That was called a 1 of 1,000. During the production run, I believe there was something like 830 some of those 1 of 1,000s made. Yes, the numbers don't add up. But those rifles that were particularly accurate got fitted with a specific trigger, a specific hammer, and then they also had the checkered stocks to really showcase the fact that that was a great rifle. Unfortunately, those were not $18 rifles. They were significantly more expensive. Better accuracy in your rifle. if you are on social media and you do like guns of any kind, or you like historical stories, recently, I believe it was in 2013, possibly a little bit later than that, there was a Winchester 73 found out in Utah, leaned up against a tree. Nobody knew where it had come from, how long it had been there. All that information is unfortunately lost, but it's a great fun mystery. That rifle, if you go back and Google the original picture of it, is the same color of the tree the weathered tree that it's leaning against. Since the discovery of that rifle, it's been through the Cody Museum. They've done a complete restoration on it, and it's been returned to the national park where it was found. It's part of the visitor center. So you can go in there and read the story on it. It's amazing. I think it was originally purchased in 1883, and thanks to the work of the Cody Museum, it's a fully functioning firearm again. When you figure that something that's been left out inside for God knows how many years was still able to go back, be reconditioned, and is still an operating firearm, that tells you the quality that they were producing at the time. I doubt I could take some of my other rifles out and leave them outside for that extended period of time and still have them be salvageable. But that's the cool thing about these old guns. They were built with some pretty wide tolerances that allowed just good engineering and wear and tear, and you could really, I mean, if you're on the trail, you're beating the crap out of this rifle. But you know what? It still is going to fire. Later on, after Winchester discontinued this model in the 80s, a company called Uberti Firearms out of Italy started to remake these to support the emerging cowboy action shooting contests that are out there. Everybody liked the 73 because it could be tuned to fire so rapidly that it is actually faster than a semi-automatic rifle with a guy that really knows how to use it. This is my buddy's rifle. It's got some tuning done to it already. It's very, very smooth. I mean, you can run this thing with a pinky. It's amazingly fast in the hands of a guy that really knows how to use it. Somebody better than me. But they're outstanding rifles. If you're looking to get into something that is really in sync with the cowboy stage of life here in America, you know, stepping into the past, but have something really reliable. Winchester and Uberti and a couple other companies are doing remanufactures of these. Winchester brought them back into their normal line. They'll run you anywhere from $1,000 to $1,500, or more than that for specialty ones. But they are an absolute joy to shoot. They're still in pistol cartridges, anywhere from 45 Colt or 44 Magnum down to 38s. So there's very little recoil to them. They are a little heavy on the barrel end because most of them have the hex barrel. That was to keep costs down. If anybody doesn't understand the hex barrel, this was the hex barrel on all models of rifles. They were left that way because when they go to turn the rifling in, the jig holds the hex barrel as they crank in that rifling. It wasn't until actually later on in the early productions of these that you could get them with a round barrel. That round barrel was an upgrade because it was reducing the amount of weight that you had to carry. But that's the 73. At the core, it's still the 1860. We just got a little bit smarter with how we made steel, how we utilized iron, how we could machine. And that is the gun that won the West. Thank you guys so much for stopping by for Bullet Points. Please like, subscribe, share, and I can't wait till next week. We got a great one coming, the Winchester 92. We'll see you then. Welcome to Central Iowa Impact. This is my happy place. With being out at the house and shooting, it's not always safe for us to shoot our larger guns out there. So we come in here. We have a nice climate-controlled range, motorized targets, It doesn't. I don't have to get muddy. I don't have to get wet. I don't have to get covered in grass clippings. I come in here, I shoot, I put my stuff away, I go home. Can't beat a place. Can't beat an indoor range, and really encourage anybody that needs anything firearm related, whether it's maintenance or purchasing new, come over to Central Iowa Impact and see what they can do for you guys. Colby, what's new in here?
Oh, well, not much. Right now we do have quite a bit on hand. However, with the current market, things are getting a little bit tight, but that's not a big deal. We can still get things, it just takes a little longer. However, we are in our service area, so this is what we do have for firearms. These are our handgun cases. We do have both. I have AR-15 parts and pieces. Got a rack full of long guns right now. Feel free to stop in.